Recently, I flew out to LA so I could sit down and talk to David Sandberg, director of Lights Out, Annabelle Creation, and the newly announced Shazam for DC. David's story is unlike any other. It's incredibly interesting and inspiring, so we talked about his path to Hollywood, his process, and even a little bit about Shazam. So now I'll shut up and get to it. Logo. So you came from very DIY filmmaking inside of your house or apartment with your wife, who's an actress.
Yeah.
Right into, like, slammed into making Hollywood feature, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So what was that process? Was it like really jarring? Because I mean, I come from the DIY world,
Yeah.
and I've had a slight toe in there, so I know how different. But so was that like a huge, like, brick wall shock?
Absolutely. And I mean, first of all, I didn't think like a 2.5 minute short could lead to anything. I thought we would have to make a longer short to get some attention and all of that. But yeah, then once we came here, Lotta and I, and I was suddenly, I'd never been on a movie set before. So I didn't know, especially not an American one, so I didn't know how things worked. And it was really weird because when you're a DIY filmmaker, then directing a movie is shooting it and making all these things yourself. And then you come here and it's like, oh, there's a guy to shoot it, and there's a guy to do that, and a guy to do that. So, which was very weird because then you have to learn how to tell other people what you want, And I had just no experience of that. And I didn't know how long everything took, So when I was planning out, and then we'll put the camera over here, and then we'll put the camera over here. And then, on a film set, you're like, oh, that's gonna be 40 minutes to put the camera over there, and then another 45 minutes to there. It's like, that's crazy. Like,
can we just light 360 and go?
Yeah, you put the camera over there. What's the problem?
The camera. I'll do it.
So you realize how long everything takes, and it's super stressful because you're on a film set and not a lot is happening, and you're just sitting there like, we don't have the time,
Yeah.
So that first movie, Lights Out, was, I mean, halfway through, or just like a week or so into the shoot, I was pretty miserable just because it was so much to deal with and all this pressure I put on myself that this has to be awesome or, nothing's going to come of this.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was pretty miserable, and there were people on the crew who came up to me. I was like, "Are you okay? You don't seem quite all right." But it got better and better as it went along, and even though it was such an ordeal afterwards, you're like, I want to do this again. I want to get another shot at it.
Which you did.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
What was that process like, getting the Lights Out feature? Did they approach you with, can you give us a treatment? Do you have an idea to make this into a feature? Like, how did that develop?
It went viral, and all of a sudden, it was kind of funny because I was telling Lotta, I've heard that people sometimes get representation in Hollywood from shorts they've made, like on Vimeo, like stuff like that. And it was, I think, the day after that I got an email from a management firm here, and it was like, oh, it's happening,
Right.
And then all of a sudden, that was just like a floodgate after that with managers and agents and producers and studios and like so many people that wanted to talk to me. And most of all, it was just people being curious about me, like, what are you working on? Like, what are your plans and stuff like that. But I started, some people were interested in sort of, do you have like a feature idea to this? Which we didn't have because, it was just supposed to be a little short film.
Sure.
So through one of the sort of managers I talked to early on, I got in touch with a writer over here who was interested in writing the movie. And he came up with this idea that I felt was too big because it was like multiple creatures. It was sort of a worldwide phenomenon. And it was like, I don't think I'd be able to handle that. Go from this to like I wanted to do something more contained, something that I felt that I could do, and that I felt that people, like a studio would actually pay me for. Like they're not going to give me $50 million for my first movie.
Sure.
So I came up with the basis for this story that eventually became the film, which is more just a family, this one creature. But that original writer wasn't as interested in that. But thanks to that writer, I came into touch with Lawrence Gray, who's a producer here. And he still liked the idea that I had. So he got in touch with Eric Heiser because Lawrence Gray knows everyone. So he got in touch with Eric Heiser, who fortunately enough really liked the idea and wanted to write it on spec even. And then Lawrence was like, okay, well, we need like a big name in horror to sort of have as a producer to sort of help us with this. And that was how James Wan came into the picture. And because James Wan has this relationship with New Line and Warner Brothers, he took it to them and they wanted to do it. So it was like this, okay, this happened and therefore this happened. Like it just this chain of events. And from the day it went viral, it was about a year of just talking, talking to the writer, talking to the producer, and then I got an agent and a manager and a lawyer, and they were working out a deal and everything. And it was, and Lotta and I just kept making shorts in the meantime, because we were like, is this real? Is this anything really going to happen from this? We didn't know, so we were just sort of playing along.
Sweden at the time, right?
Yeah, because as soon as I got an agent, they were like, well, can you fly out here? And because we want to set you up with all these meetings in LA. And I was like, no, I can't afford to fly to like, I'm broke.
Yeah.
Then it went viral in March of 2014. And then in November, it seemed like it was happening more, so the producer flew me and Lotta out here and paid for that, so we could meet with James and New Line and Eric and everyone. And then March, again, I think it was, we got the call that, yeah, the movie's happening. So get on a plane, fly out here. Like the studio is paying to fly you out here. They'll pay for a hotel for like a week while we try to find some place to live here. So we just, locked the apartment door and Lotta quit her job. And so it was a huge gamble because we still didn't know. I mean, the movie wasn't technically greenlit yet. So it was a huge gamble, and we had to like borrow as much money as we could from everyone we knew just to be able to, buy food and find a place on Airbnb here, because it's expensive staying here, even just like an Airbnb, because we found a half a garage in Burbank. That was where we stayed for 5 months when we first came here. And it took a long time for the movie to get the green light, which was strange to me because, we were having an office and all these people working, and it's like, how can we not be greenlit?
Right.
And, one of the...
So were you guys developing then? You were developing while waiting for the green light?
I mean, we were in pre-production. The movie just wasn't technically greenlit, so I wasn't getting paid, which was...
So you were still working towards a shoot date without
Absolutely, yeah. That's how things can happen here. Yeah. It's super weird. So, we ran out of money quick, and I had to borrow money from the producer. Lawrence Gray was kind enough to lend us some money. And then finally, the movie was greenlit, like a couple of weeks before we started shooting. And I was like, we went out and bought clothes and all like, oh, we can go out and eat nice meals. And finally,
Yeah. What about just being on set? You talked a little bit about that, but being on set, coming from the DIY background you did into full-fledged Hollywood production, what would you say was one of the most surprising things just being in production that you maybe wish you would have known before getting into it?
Well, partly just how long everything takes, because I planned out all these shots and stuff I wanted to do and all these setups, and then you find out that, oh shit, you can't actually do this. Because when you first AD, sort of presents you with a schedule, and it's like, do you think this will work? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this seems like super doable in a day, because, I'm used to working like this. And then you find out, oh, okay, that's not how it works.
Right.
But there was some sort of friction on set as well, just because I was the least experienced person on that set. I mean, everyone else had worked on like huge movies and have these long careers in Hollywood, and here's this guy from Sweden who doesn't know anything, who were supposed to tell you what to do,
Right.
Like I had to think I proved myself a little bit that I actually know these things.
Yeah, and you just went and shot some stuff yourself with your Blackmagic camera, right?
I did, yeah.
And that made it into the movie, right?
Yeah. I think the only thing, I shot some temp stuff, but all the sort of flashbacks at the hospital were actually shot with the Blackmagic pocket camera.
That's great.
After we did test screenings of the movie, people were like, we want to know more backstory. We want to know where Diana came from and all this. And I was telling the studio, just find me, if we just find this hospital, old abandoned hospital, and I just need these 2 actors and I can shoot myself. And everyone was like, oh, no, I mean, no, you can't do that, So we went there with the whole full team with all the Alexa cameras and all the light, and we shot these things. And then sort of between setups, I would still take the actors and just go out and shoot some little things with my little black magic camera, and that's all that's in the movie. So it's like,
That's great.
See, you didn't need all that. Could have done it so much cheaper.
Man, I love that. Did you storyboard at all, or did you shot list?
Like a madman.
Really?
Yeah, just because I was like, I better not fuck this up, you know.
Yeah.
Like I did so many storyboards and like little animatics and shot lists and diagrams. Like, yeah, camera's gonna move like this and all that. And then you show up on set, and like those first few days, it was that sort of a bit of friction with the camera department. So they hardly even looked at them. And then, you know, I also realized that they weren't going to happen because, we don't have time to do this, or a lot of times I'd come up with new stuff on set. Like, well, this is cooler and this is faster to do, let's do this instead. And that led to, on Annabelle Creation, that I just, I'm not going to storyboard and do all these things. Let's just show up and, you know, we'll figure it out with the DP and everyone, because it takes forever between setups, so I'll just walk the set and figure out what we're doing the next day, you know?
That's great. So you didn't even shot list for Annabelle?
No.
I'm sure Annabelle has a ton of pretty terrifying moments, just like Lights Out. Do you have a specific approach to sort of hashing out that the concept of how to pull that emotion from an audience when you're entering that, or are you finding that on set now? And did that change between Lights Out and Annabelle?
It's a combination. I mean, some stuff was thought up on set, and some of the really good stuff was thought up on set. But I mean, usually it's kind of hard trying to surprise people.
Right.
You know, like my approach is basically, okay, I try to stretch out the tension for as long as possible before you have like a jump scare or something like that, and just, you know, make things worse and worse for the character, and just try to be, okay, what would be the expected thing here? Like, if I was watching the movie, what would I expect, and how can I sort of tweak that or delay it?
So before you were working with your wife, who is an actress, did you find that sort of relationship much different than when you were on Lights Out working with actors? Was it the first time you were working with Hollywood actors on Lights Out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you find that sort of relationship and process much different?
Well, it was more intimidating to have, like,
Sure.
tell Maria Bello what to do.
That had to be horrifying.
Yeah. But, I mean, the approach I've learned just working with Lotta is that I'll visualize a scene very detailed in my head, and I'll hear a line a certain way. But what I realized is that I'm never going to get what's in my head, you know, from a performer, because it doesn't come naturally to them or whatever. So I've had to let that go, instead of being like, no, say it like this, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah.
I've found it to be better to just, you know, like for the first take, I'll not even give them a lot of direction. I just want to see what they bring to it. And then you'll talk about it if it's not right, you know.
Are you doing rehearsals?
Just the rehearsals right before the camera
Just the
rolls,
blocking
you know.
before you roll?
Yeah, because especially on these movies happen so fast, because like on Lights Out, I didn't meet Maria Bello in person until 5 minutes before her first scene.
Oh, wow.
So because she was cast after we started shooting the movie, like things just come together so quickly. So there was no time for rehearsing, and it was just like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, and action. but I think that works out pretty well. And I'm you know, I'm trying to learn that thing of like, no, say it like this, and just give them sort of, just talk about what the scene is about, or what I'm trying to get out from it, and then let them do their thing.
So now that you finished up Annabelle, you got another project set up,
Yes.
right? Shazam.
Yeah.
How did that one come about?
Kind of the same thing. So I mean, New Line was very happy with how Annabelle turned out, and you know, I want to keep working with them, and they seem to want to keep working with me. So they called me up, and were like, would you be interested in directing Shazam? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I got to meet with, you know, guys from DC, like Jeff Johns and everyone. And it was one of those weird things where you're like, it's not that one moment of, okay, you got the job. It's sort of gradual, like, we're having meetings. And then you sort of start talking about these very real things. And you're like, well, so do I have the job? Like, is this real now? Or yeah, that's why I was glad that it was finally sort of announced, because like, oh, okay, it's real. There's no take backsies. But I'm very happy that they wanted to keep
and I mean,
working with
it's
it.
obviously going to be a much different tone.
Yes.
But you've done more comedic stuff in the past, I've heard you say.
Yeah, mostly in animation, but yeah, some of those, I did a lot of animation for almost 10 years, and like more comedic shorts and stuff like that, so it's not totally foreign.
So this is obviously going to be a much bigger budget than Annabelle and Lights Out. So far, does it seem like the process is going to be much different? I mean, I don't know how far along in the process you are, but does it seem like it's going to be much different?
No, I mean, when it comes down to it, the movie making, no matter what budget level you're at, it's sort of the same, you know? It's sort of the same storytelling techniques and sort of the same way of shooting. It's just that you sort of have more days and more toys and longer post-production. So it doesn't seem that different. It's just a lot longer. Yeah. Like I mean, this one isn't going to come out next year, so I'm sort of breaking that. Yeah, one movie every year.
Right.
Yeah, I look forward to having more toys.
Yeah, where are you at in that process? Are you scripting yet, or are you just like
Yeah,
prepping?
no, there's a script, and we're sort of getting. It's the next DC movie to shoot.
And you're prepping right now by reading like Shazam comic books and stuff. What are you reading specifically? Are you like honing in on a certain?
I'm just taking it all in. And some of those really old ones are quite fun. When he's like fighting Hitler and stuff like that. No, because he's been around since the 40s for like as long as Superman. So there's a lot to read, and that's also interesting because he sort of has like a couple of different origin stories, or a couple of different takes on it. You know, you have the most recent sort of Jeff Johns version, and then you have Ordwell version, and then you have those really old versions. But yeah, it's going to be interesting just because of how hardcore the fans are. Like already I see that if I tweet a little something, you know, suddenly there's like blog posts and arguments and no matter what you do, some people are going to be disappointed because, you know, I get so many tweets about you should do this, or then someone else is like, no, you should do this, which is the complete opposite of that. And it's like, okay, well, one of you guys are going to be disappointed.
Sad.
Yeah.
And I mean, you probably can't talk about it, but Black Adam's not in the film, right?
No. So yeah, The Rock has been cast as Black Adam, but he's not going to be featured in this film.
I'm interested about the whole, like, is that shaping the story? Because that casting's not happening, so is that adjusting the story?
Well, I mean, there have been variations of the script, like before I came along, where, you know, variations where Black Adam was in and out, and, you know, but now this is about Shazam.
If you could go back in time to before you made Lights Out, you're just, you know, with Lota making your films, what sort of advice would you give yourself that you wish you knew before stepping on a Hollywood production?
Well, I mean, some things felt like, maybe I should have been more sort of not pushy, but what's sort of the word where you're sort of assertive, yes. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe the movie wouldn't have happened then, you know? Like one of the things was that, you know, since Lotta and I made Lights Out together, it felt like she should have been like a producer on Lights Out. But we didn't dare to push for that because, you know, maybe they would just go, well, we're not doing the movie then. You know,
right.
You know, it was such an intangible thing, this movie, that's like, oh, better not scare it away, you know. Right. So, you know, little things like that, well, not so little, but things like that. But we're sort of trying to fix that now, like, you know, want to make her a producer on Lights Out too, and you know, sort of correct wrongs like that. But at the same time, things worked out pretty well. So, you know, I don't think we should have, no need to have changed too much in the past.
Anything in the process specifically, like being on set, that you wish you knew before stepping on? Yeah,
especially because on Lights Out, it was like, well, if we don't get this scene today, then that's gone. We're screwed. But I've learned that if you don't get it that day, you can get it another day. If you can't do that, you can ask the studio for an extra day of shooting. You know, it's not impossible. So I was very much, we have to do this, otherwise it's all gone, or we have to do things in certain ways, and it's not that rigid. Like you can, it's sort of an organic process to make movies.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, well, thanks very much, man. If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, innovator, Domain.com is the place to go when that next great idea hits you. When you buy a domain name from Domain.com, you're taking the first steps in creating an identity and vision for your brand or idea, and the world's top 2 premier and most recognized domain name extensions are .com and .net, which means those are the ones that are going to help you build your brand and expand your presence online the best. And for a limited time from now until August 31st, you can get 35% off using the coupon code FilmJumbo when you get domain names, web hosting, and email. Just use that coupon code, and when you think domain names, think Domain.com.
Logo.
But that's it for today. Big thank you to David for taking the time. And if you didn't know, he has some amazing educational content online as well. He's currently releasing a 5-part series on directing Annabelle, on top of a bunch of other great info. So if you don't follow him, check out the notes below and fix that ASAP. And of course, Annabelle comes out tomorrow, so be sure to check that one out as well. We also shot an interview with Dan Trachtenberg, director of 10 Cloverfield Lane and my favorite Black Mirror episode. That one's going to be coming out soon too. And I'll see you guys next time, when I definitely shouldn't go to the park at 8:05 a.m.
There's this big hole in the wall just taken out. I was like, what's that about? Well, James wanted like the camera to travel back, so we had to cut out a hole, and I was like, oh, I want to do that, I want to be in that position.